Good evening and welcome to the Planning Application Committee meeting, part 2. I'm Councillor David O'Mahony, Chair of the committee. We're not expecting a fire drill this evening. If the alarm sounds, you'll be directed to the nearest safe exit by members of the team. Eddie, can we have apologies for absences?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be giving the apologies.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. So tonight we've received apologies from Councillor Mary Glowett, who is substituted by Councillor Cliff Betton, Councillor Liz Noble, who is substituted by Councillor Ying Tong Perrott, Councillor Jonathan Quinn, who is substituted by Councillor Murray Rowlands, Councillor Kevin Thompson, who is substituted by Councillor Sean MacDonald, and apologies from Councillor Helen Whitcroft.
Lovely, thank you very much. Do any members have any declarations of interest they need to state before we start? Councillor Garrett?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's item 2 and 3, both relating to Gordon Murray. When I was portfolio holder, I visited. I've also been with the Chamber of Commerce, and I also went to the event where it was a community event to speak to people about the new buildings and etc. that's going on. So lots of input, but I come with an open mind.
Any other members? Councillor MacDonald?
Sorry, Chair, I've got quite a few. With respect to item 4, sat as a substitute on the previous May 2024 determination where clearly a view was expressed. However, I come into this with an open mind. With respect to items 5 and 6, I worked for BOC Linda, the previous owner of the site, for 15 years, including 2 years on that site. I'm also a member of the Camberley Bagshot Roman Catholic Parish, which provides partial oversight for part of that site where the nuns' graveyard is. Again, come into it with open mind. With respect to item 7, I live on an adjacent road. That site is at the end of the road. I've also had periodic private and public conversations with the Housing Association management that are taking on this site, but again, come into it with an open mind.
Thank you very much. Did you get all that? Any other members? Any declarations? Okay, now on to item 6 of the first planning application of the agenda, which is 250020, land south of Beach House, Woodlands Lane in Windlesham. Ian William presents.
Thank you, Chair. The application is being reported to Planning Committee as a major development of more than 10 dwellings. Outline permission is sought for the erection of 20 dwellings. The application site is southeast of Broadley Green and south of the dwellings fronting Woodlands Lane. The site comprises one Broadley Green, part of the garden land of Anfield House, and an open field with an open field shelter. Just running through some photos of the site. The photo to the top left is south, looking south towards the existing access with one Broadley Green to the right. This photo is south, looking along the access. The photo on the bottom left is looking west along the dwellings fronting Broadley Green, and the photo at the bottom right is looking into the site with the field shelter on the left. Just some more photos of the site. So looking south along the western boundary is the top left photo. The top right photo is looking east across the site. The bottom left photo is looking north towards the dwellings fronting Woodlands Lane, and the bottom right photos looking east into the site. The application is for outline permission for the access and the erection of 20 dwellings. All other matters in terms of the appearance, scale, layout and landscaping are reserved. The proposal would provide 15 3-bed and 5 2-bed dwellings. It would provide 50% affordable housing provision with 7 social rent units and 3 shared ownership units, and a total of 55 car parking spaces. The application, the access and indicative layout are the same as the previously approved and extant permission reference 22/0935, which was taken to the Planning Committee in May 2024. The only difference has been the age restriction for over 55s has been removed. No change to the size or number of the dwellings as previously approved. The site is considered grey belt land and does not perform well against Part A, B or D of paragraph 143 of the MPPF. Due to the lack of 5-year housing supply, the proposal meet a demonstrable need in terms of the housing and would also provide social rented accommodation, which there is a demonstrable need. The site is in a sustainable location at the edge of the settlement. The proposal would therefore meet the golden rules in providing 50% social rented accommodation of 50% affordable housing, including social rented accommodation, the necessary highways improvements to Woodlands Lane, 2 areas of open space totalling 460 square metres. The development is therefore not considered an appropriate development within the Greenbelt. In terms of the impact on the character of the area, neighbour amenity, highways, flood risk, drainage, the proposal would be as the extant permission and is considered to be acceptable. Biodiversity net gain, Wildlife Trust has not objected, and the game plan would be secured by condition. SANG allocation would be through SIL, and the SAM payment would be secured through the legal agreement. Therefore, due to the lack of the 5-year housing supply and the extant permission, which is a significant material consideration, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the recommended conditions and satisfactory completion of a legal agreement. Thank you, Chair.
We have several public speakers for this item, but before I forget again, members of the committee, are you happy for me to approve the minutes from the last planning application meeting on the 17th of July? Okay. Do it. First, in an objection to the application, I'd like to ask Richard Swain. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, Chair, just before we go ahead, it was raised with me today by Chobham Parish Council that when we vote, nobody is saying how people are voting, and they felt that that should be mentioned when we come to voting on the applications. Thank you.
Anyone recorded? Thank you. In objection to this application, I would like to ask Richard Swain, who is speaking on behalf of Emma Swain, to come up and speak first, please. Hello, Mr. Swain. Hi. You have 4 minutes to speak. You may start when you're ready, and the countdown will start. The device in front of you, if you press the button, the red light comes up, and then we can all hear you. Yeah. Silver button at the bottom. That's it.
Perfect. Right. I'm here obviously to object against this development. I live directly opposite the entrance to Broadley Green. I'm the house opposite, and living there, every day I get to witness what happens on that junction and how dangerous that road and that junction actually is. And what I'm mainly concerned about is by building this development, they're taking away some parking on Broadley Green. I know the applicant's adding parking for the development, but they're taking down a bungalow to widen the entrance, and that's going to take away a minimum of 2, possibly more parking spaces. Now, parking on Broadley Green is already very tetchy and tough. Well, I moved in 3 years ago, and almost immediately I parked on there because I was having something delivered, and I got a letter on my car, expletive, saying how selfish I was parking, and I was parked perfectly legally somewhere where they like to park on Broadley Green. A year later, my family members parked there. They've got a letter, and a couple of my neighbours who also live on Woodlands Lane. We don't like to park on Woodlands Lane because it's the main road and it is extremely dangerous. The cars fly up there. So no one wants to leave their car out there. We have no parking apart from the driveways. But when people visit, the only parking is Broadley Green. And when we park there, we seem to be upsetting the neighbours or the community or whoever lives there, and they seem to be getting very annoyed. And so parking's already quite an issue there. And I feel that taking away even more parking on Broadley Green, when it's busy, it's going to force cars out onto Woodlands Lane, which is extremely dangerous. Cars parking on Woodlands Lane have 2 ways of parking, on the road, not on the curb, and that's very risky for your car. I've seen wing mirrors hit, I've seen many incidents. There's 2 recorded police incidents outside the entrance to Broadley Green in the last 2 years. And the other way of parking is they park partially on the pavement. Now, the pavement is very narrow outside my house. And when they do that, we can't get wheelchairs past, we can't get pushchairs past. And I've got a young baby. My wife has to go out and walk the baby with the dog, and she can't get past. The shops are at the bottom of the hill, she can't get to it. And she walks in the road, on that extremely dangerous road on Woodlands Lane, which is, it's got its own issues which need addressing, because no one drives the speed limit up there, and it's blind. And she has to walk out into the middle of the road with a buggy. Now, what I'm concerned about is the development we're talking about here is going to take away parking in Broadley Green. More people are going to park on the main road, and it's a risk to the cars parked, the cars driving, and the pedestrians using the already narrow pathway, which is not suitable. Now,
That's 1 minute left.
I don't know when the traffic department that okays it all. I don't know the highway agencies. I don't know what goes into it, but if someone's outside my house and the entrance to Broadley Green for a day, they would soon realise just how many incidents happen. You only need to do it for 1 day. It's outside my living room. I watch it daily. It's crazy. It's on the brow of a hill and it's extremely dangerous. And I just feel this development's going to add to it. I'm a plumber myself. I go and do work in these developments when I do work. And you know, I know there's adequate parking provided, but sometimes I don't know what's going on. You're not allowed to park in there. You have to park on the road. Now, again, if I'm parking on this, tradesmen come in, they have to park on Broadley Green. It adds to the problem. One more car parked on the main road, which is one more danger. And it takes one car for a really bad incident to happen with my family. And I've got to stand here and look out for my family. And the houses next to me have...
That is time.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Members of the committee. Oh, Mr. Swain, just 1 minute. Members of the committee, do you have any questions of Mr. Swain and clarification of any of the points that were made? Mr. Swain, thank you very much for coming up and speaking. Second speaker in support of the application, I would like to ask Bridget Taylor of Wolf Bonding Planning on behalf of the applicant to come up and speak, please. Hi, Bridget. You have 4 minutes to speak. You can start whenever you're ready, and Democratic Service will count you down and advise when you have the minute to go.
Thank you. Good evening. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Council's officer for their thorough and detailed report setting out the important considerations for this application. The proposal would deliver 20 homes, a net gain of 19, which will make a significant contribution to the Council's housing land supply. It does so on a site which the Council and this committee has previously accepted as a sustainable location. The principle of development of this site has been established. The indicative layout, dwelling sizes, access design, the road layout, the parking and the garden sizes are all the same as the previously approved scheme. As the officer explained, the only change relates to a different tenure split. So 10 of the proposed dwellings will be affordable homes, contributing to identified affordable housing needs. This level of provision, 50%, exceeds the development plan requirement, which is a significant benefit of the scheme. The affordable homes will not be restricted to over 55s. Of course, over 55s will still be eligible where appropriate, but the units would also be available to other members of the local community, such as those looking to move out of the family home or moving up the housing ladder as their families expand. A letter of support has been provided by Stonewater Developments. They're an experienced social housing provider with a strong track record of local delivery. They confirm they are in negotiations with the landowner and they intend to deliver the whole site, so both the affordable and the market homes, should permission be granted. Therefore, this is a deliverable scheme and it can be delivered in a timely fashion. The Council's officer has confirmed that the site qualifies as grey belt land. That conclusion is not subjective. The term grey belt is clearly defined in national policy and planning guidance. And the officer is quite correct in concluding that the council's own objective analysis undertaken back in 2022 confirms that the site plays no strong function against purposes A, B or D, which is the relevant test. Moreover, the council has previously accepted that the site is in a sustainable location, and it is a matter of fact that the proposal complies with the golden rules. And the NPPF directs that in such a case, significant weight should be given to that fact. Given this clear policy support and the fact that the design echoes that which has been previously approved, it's no surprise perhaps that there have been no objections from County Highways, the Lead Flood Authority, Natural England, County Archaeology, Surrey Police, Thames Water, the Tree Officer, Environmental Health or the Wildlife Trust. The proposal has been designed to ensure neighbourhood plan policy requirements for parking space are met, and that includes not just the number of parking units but also the dimensions, which in the neighbourhood plan is a larger dimension than the standard county requirement.
That's 1 minute left.
The change in tenure has no effect on the parking provision because the previous scheme was designed to ensure it reflected policy requirements. Now, I appreciate the comments about traffic. I would just reiterate there was a transport statement submitted with the application. It has assessed the increase in traffic arising from this proposal. It confirms that the impact in terms of increase in traffic will be immaterial and imperceptible. There would be one additional vehicle movement every 6 or 7 mornings in the AM and PM peak, which is clearly negligible. The NPPF is quite clear that proposals should only be refused on highways grounds where there's a severe impact on the highway network, which I don't think I would say 1 every 6 minutes would meet that requirement. So to conclude, the proposal contributes to identified housing needs and that attracts significant weight. It's fully compliant with National Greenbelt policy. That also attracts significant weight. The design has already previously been approved, and there are a number of new benefits this time around with the contribution to a housing supply shortfall, 10%
that is
BNG.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions of the Speaker? Councillor Wheeler, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yes, I just want a couple of points. I have to say not for the first time disagree with the movement plan, because if you've got 20 homes, some of which are 3-bedroom dwellings, if you've got a teenager in there, I appreciate that this council has chosen to say that it's in a sustainable location, but it isn't, because everyone needs a car. And certainly my experience of living with a teenager is that there's one for myself, there's one for my partner, and there's one for my child or children, because there's no other way of getting around. So based on that, the number of movements that are calculated, I have to say, is open to interpretation. My question relates to the reduction in affordable housing, because I'm surprised that that's not been mentioned as a material change, because for me it's a fairly major material change, and I just wondered the reason behind that. Thank you.
Certainly. I just respond on the parking. So the policy standard for a 3-bed house is 3 spaces. So that's met.
Sorry, it wasn't the parking, it was the vehicle movements. I'm aware of the local plan and the parking, and I appreciate that you adhere to that. I'm just saying that the vehicle movements, to have one extra when we've no longer got mature people that are less likely to have teenagers living at home is are modelled by an expert who obviously knows much better than I do. But maybe doesn't live the life that I do.
Yes. So in terms of the affordable housing, yes, there is a reduction overall compared to the previous approved scheme. The policy basis for the application obviously differs. We've got a new regime with the new NPPF. So this application needs to be assessed on its own merits, not as a what does it deliver as compared with the extant scheme, but is it acceptable in its own right against policy as it stands as at today's date. So the reason for the change essentially is when the application previously came to committee May last year, the affordable units were going to be delivered by the local community housing trust, but at the end of last year they advised my client that they didn't want to be involved anymore. So at that point they went back out to the market to see whether they could find another registered provider who was willing to pick up the units, and that's how they've arrived at this scheme, which is you know, I think most of you will know it's quite difficult in this climate to get registered providers to take on sites. They've found one, they've confirmed they're willing to deliver it, but this is the mix that they were prepared to commit to and what they think is deliverable and viable. So that's, in a nutshell, where we've ended up.
So basically then it's the government change in policy has enabled you to come back with a scheme that delivers less affordable housing because of the new definition of grey
I
belt.
don't dispute that the government policy has changed and therefore what's acceptable today might not have been acceptable 12 months ago. Yes.
Councillor Wilson.
That's okay, Chair. That was the question I was going to ask.
Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. And I won't go into the traffic movements either because I'm sure we don't want to go into that conversation again. So my question is, on the traffic movements related to this application, can we just confirm that Surrey have re-looked at the traffic movements based on the fact that we are now not looking at an age limit and they're allowing for cars appropriately based on that?
Yes, so the applicant submitted a transport statement which compares the previous scheme to the proposed scheme, used different TRIX data in terms of the type of unit. So instead of elder person's housing or retirement housing, it looked at a standard market and affordable. It used a standard market, which is more conservative, given that affordable would have it'd be expected to have lower car ownership rates. So Surrey County have responded and confirmed they're happy.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you. Just listening to yourself and obviously listening to the other public speaker, and it may be a question for you, it may be one for the officers to clarify, and apologies, I'm a super sub at the last minute on this one. In the assessment around the traffic implications and the highways implications, was the reduction in parking for the existing properties considered in that process? Thank you.
So I think the point there is there's the one existing dwelling which will be demolished and replaced as part of the scheme, which is why it's a net gain of 19. So that house will be demolished and the parking that's being re-provided includes the requirements of that house. So it will be brought up to modern standards in terms of the parking provision for that property.
That answered a question, but it wasn't the question I asked. In terms of the implication on the reduction in the roadway available for the existing residents of the road, I appreciate that the potential new residents will have adequate parking as per the standard, including the extra wide or long, I'm not sure which dimension, as required by the neighbourhood plan. But what I'm not clear about is whether the reduction in the overall number of spaces within the road for the existing properties was considered, again, having listened to the public speaker.
As far as I'm aware, on the previous application, the county they concluded, whether rightly or wrongly, that there was adequate parking in Broadley Green. They addressed that the first time around. So in this, I don't think they've made that point again now, but they certainly did on the last application.
Members, any other questions? Thank you very much for your time. You return to your seat. Do we have any councillors speaking on this application who are not on the committee? No. In that case, members, do you have any questions for the officers concerning this application? Councillor MacDonald.
Just wondering whether I could get clarification on the question I asked to the public speaker there, from the officer's perspective, whether that was assessed.
In all honesty, I don't know whether or not the Highway Authority would have considered the loss of on-street car parking as part of the application. However, there is an existing access there. The access has obviously been widened, but in all honesty, I wouldn't be able to tell you one way or the other.
Chair, thank you. Just so on a separate point, I noticed in the report, and I think the officers might expect this one coming, that it mentions a pedestrian walkway, a made pedestrian walkway through to the supermarket, which I think is in Lightwater. Just to clarify, there isn't a cohesive pathway all the way to the supermarket in Lightwater. It goes down to an extremely narrow, less than a buggy width curbside over a bridge. That is also the access route through to the GP surgery in terms of accessing healthcare provision. So I do think at some point we need to be looking at these developments cumulatively and how we are going to address these kind of structural issues we have, and particularly with respect to developments in Windlesham that uses the facilities in Lightwater, particularly the healthcare, we need to make sure that we're properly recording those concerns. And last point is, along most of that footway all the way to Lightwater, it doesn't comply with the highway standard of 2 metres.
Do you need a response now from the officers, or?
Well, I think there's probably some other members in the area that are familiar with what I'm talking about here, and listen, we all know it's a balanced equation of various weightings, but it's factually incorrect at the moment, I think.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whelan?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Swain, for taking the time to come and talk. It's very frustrating for us in this committee that we very often disagree with the perception of our highways colleagues, and unfortunately, we are not the lead authority when it comes to highway matters. I would just like to raise the point that in the conditions and the conditions that will come in later in terms of the construction transport management plan, can we make absolutely clear, please, that that should not that any construction, any traffic that is related or vehicles that are related to the development cannot park in Broadley Green or Woodlands Road, and vehicles must be accommodated on site in order to maintain residential amenity and residential splay.
As part of the construction management plan, we can certainly add an informative advising the applicants of that to take that into account during the process, so they're aware of that, and certainly the construction management plan will cover that in that respect. And in any event, that's something we would expect county to consider, and county would look at the storage, they would look at the parking, all those interrelated elements. We would consult highways on the actual construction management plan when the details were submitted to us.
If I can just come back, if we can have assurance, please, that that will be written into the construction management plan, I would be really grateful. I don't know if other members would support that.
As I had advised, it would be best if we put that down as an informative, advising the applicants of that, and then that's something that we can pick up with the subsequent details to comply application.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Chair. It's two questions, really. So we approved this, the previous application 14 months ago, and it had 16 affordable homes. The application before us tonight has 10 affordable homes. So first question is, do the officers think it was the intention of the government's new NPPF to reduce the number of affordable homes allowable in this way? And also, there's no building has been started on this for 14 months since we approved it. So it appears that the new NPPF has delayed the start of building any new homes at all on this site. So that's question one. Was that the government's intention? And question two is, if we refuse this permission tonight, is the previous permission a fallback position which would give us more affordable homes? Thank you.
I think in terms of the government's intention, I think their intention was to actually provide more land, greenbelt land, that what they considered wasn't greybelt. What they considered was greybelt land to provide housing. This site in itself was allocated was treated as a housing reserve site, where the policy was that it would have to be 100% affordable for it to be released. However, because of the I suppose the characteristics of the site and the way that the policy has been written, it's obviously resulted in a lesser provision of affordable housing being acceptable on the site. So it may not have been their intention to do that, but that's the way the policy has actually been written. In terms of refusing this, I would recommend that, given that you have an extant permission and that the application is actually compliant with policy, you would need to find demonstrable harm and reasons why you would be departing from the previous approval. It ticks the local plan policy in terms of the amount of affordable, and now that policy has changed in terms of the green belt and the release of land, you have to assess it in line with the policy as it is at this moment in time, not what it was previously.
Thanks, I totally understand that. So it's your advice that if we did refuse it, then the applicant could appeal and it would be certainly overturned?
Yes, that would be correct. The applicant would have very strong grounds for successor appeal, in my opinion, and potentially could apply for costs as well.
And just to add to that, it's the 5-year housing land supplies position has massively changed. So in the planning balance, we have to give so much more weight to that, whereas previously we would have been ticking the 5-year housing land supply position.
Councillor Garrett.
So just to clarify, based on the government's changes in policy, we are now going to lose social housing in Surrey Heath because of this application and the government's change in the law. Just to clarify that point, that's the only reason this is changing is because the government has changed the rules, yes?
Well, the applicant also made the point about the difficulty with seeking register a provider, that it can be an issue, but it's also the issue in terms of the nature of the affordable housing you're getting. Obviously here it's going to be social rent, so that's the hardest affordable housing to get in practice. Local authorities struggle to provide that. The fact that they're actually putting that forward is a massive positive of the scheme, and you have to put that into the overall benefits and the overall consideration of the scheme as well.
And I'm not expecting an answer for this now, but in view of this application and previous applications that we may have passed, I would be interested to hear if there are any other applications where we might also find ourselves in a situation where previous social housing will be decreased because of the government's changes of the rules. And I'm not expecting you to give me that answer now, but I really would like to get an understanding if there are other applications where this could be effective.
All I would say to that is we don't have many scenarios of this rural exception site such as this under that old policy. And this application, as you can see from the history, has come forward many times on that rural exception site argument.
Councillor Wheeler.
Can I just check, is there agreement from Surrey County Council, given that this is predominantly an affordable housing site, for the maintenance of the roads, or is it down to the people within the site to maintain pavement, roads, etc., i.e. they are unadopted?
Well, typically nowadays with nearly all developments, it's a management company that undertakes that. It's highly unusual to have county step in and do that. You've obviously not just got affordable housing on this site, you've got market housing as well. So I would expect it would be a management company, and it's very typical of nearly all developments nowadays.
Sorry, and also can I check that the affordable housing and the market housing is peppercorn and isn't shoved to one end or the other of this development?
There will be a condition, I think, in the update sheet which required that the tenure of the affordable housing be provided on a plan, so that's something that officers can look at. The NPPF also promotes mixed and balanced communities as well, so it's something that we would discuss with the applicant.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you. Just a brief one. Could I just clarify that within the site itself, it's fully compliant with road safety standards? Because looking at it, I felt you might have to have an advanced level driving certificate to get into some of the parking spaces or out of them in the morning, despite them being slightly larger than average, which in turn, of course, means extra reversing, which is a pedestrian risk area.
At the moment, the only matter that's been fixed by this planning permission is the access. The layout and the other matters are reserved matters. However, I do believe, having read the report in paragraph Yeah, I think it was paragraph 798. So yeah, it does say that the layout remains indicative. So when they come in for the reserved matters, then we would look at the detail of the actual layout of the car parking and the roads as well.
Thank you for correcting me on the process. Yeah, appreciate that, Mr. Williams. Just a small side comment. We're not going to solve this problem today, but I suspect a number of us are concerned about this grey belt definition, and it wasn't relevant previously because of the policy, but obviously it is relevant today now that things have changed. Just to know that I will comply with the rules and the law, but it doesn't mean to say the law isn't an ass.
Thank you very much. Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Just a quick point to comply with the golden rules, which as you said it does. That one of the golden rules is any necessary highway improvements, and I think that includes some work on Woodlands Lane. Would what the first public speaker mentioned to us, would that be taken into account about basically traffic safety and pedestrian safety on Woodlands Lane?
So obviously Woodlands Lane and broadly a part of the Surrey County Council's adopted highway. So they've obviously assessed the application. They've considered that there is a necessary to provide that crossing on Woodland Lane. In terms of Broadley Green, they've obviously asked for the access to be sort of widened as well to ensure that that's there. It's something that would need to be taken up with county highways, unfortunately. I suppose that they just assess the impacts of the proposed development in those sort of relations. Any sort of knock-on effect may well, they may well look at some, I suppose, what's the word, parking controls or something like that, but that would be outside the remit of sort of the planning application process itself.
Yeah, sure. What I was getting at is one of the necessary highway improvements that is included in the plan will be, it's unspecified exactly at the moment, but it will be a pedestrian crossing on Woodlands Lane, informal and minor really, but it might mitigate some of the problems that the public speaker talked about.
Yes, so I think that was part of the concern and why highways put it forward. That obviously Woodlands Lane is a difficult road for pedestrians to cross and what have you, and that's why they consider it necessary, given that there will be additional housing provided in this application.
Councillor White.
That was partly my question as well, but I'm concerned about the residents of Broadley Green and their being able to park. If anybody knows Broadley Green well, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, and it seems to get worse each year. I used to do collections up there regularly, and I couldn't park anywhere near to be able to go and do collections. Anyway, and nobody seems to think about the quality of life of the residents adjacent to this development. The other thing is accessibility to the site, with it being affordable housing. I don't suppose it's a planning condition, but I should have asked the previous speaker, but will residents applying for the affordable rental be told that Windlesham is totally inaccessible if you haven't got a car? Beautiful place to live, but you need a car to get there.
I can't speak for what the applicant will say to the future purchasers or occupiers of the units, but certainly we just need to reiterate that 20 dwellings were accepted before. The highway issues were accepted before. There are no changes, effectively. We've got the same quantum of development as before, the same highway movements. The highway safety issues haven't changed. Yes, we have those conditions 3 and 4 in place, which the highways have asked for, which will control and help with the highway safety side of things. But beyond that, we have to default back to the extant permission as well as to the highway improvements and what's already been established on this site.
Councillor Garrett.
Sorry, thank you. Just picking up on that last point. I've sat in this chamber on a number of occasions recently. We've talked about care homes and assisted living where they've changed the age groups, etc. And we've had the conversation about increased traffic. So the comment about there is no increased traffic, when we've gone from plus 55 to below 55, and I'm not going to get into the same argument we've had in this chamber on a number of occasions recently, but it's a little bit worrying that we're saying that now we've gone below 55, the traffic is going to be no less or no more, because I just don't believe that. There is going to be more traffic because there is going to be an age group where people have cars, and as previously highlighted, to get from the estate to Windlesham, you are going to need a car, and as highlighted by Councillor MacDonald, there isn't a walkway that is suitable to get from the estate. So we come back to this issue where we're relying on data from highways. Do we know when highways do their reports, do we know whether they actually come out and visit these sites? Do we get feedback that says it is a desktop or it's physical? Because the very first speaker said he can see from his own doorstep, his own window, the amount of traffic that happens on a daily basis. Now, if he can do that, then surely counties should be able to see the same thing. So if they're doing it on the desktop, they're not going to see it. If they're doing it physically, they are. So do we know if they've actually left their desks and done this report, or have they done it from a desktop? That would be really interesting to know.
I can't answer the question whether or not they visit on every single site, but I know certainly speaking to them in the past, the majority of the sites they are going out and visiting on. I can't answer that question on this one.
Members, if we draw this to the close, we think we've asked all the questions we can ask. The officer recommendation is to grant, subject to conditions, legal agreement and an informative. Correct. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? We have a proposer. We have a seconder. Can I be a seconder?
Yes, you can be. Chair can be a seconder.
So to confirm, that's Councillor David Whitcroft proposing and Councillor David O'Mahony seconding.
Okay, do you want to ask the vote?
So could I have a raise of hands for all members who are in voting for the officer recommendation to grant the application? If you could raise your hands and keep them raised and lower them once I've given your name. That's Councillor Sean Garrett, Councillor Ying Tong Perrott, Councillor Murray Rowlands, Councillor Sean MacDonald, Councillor David Whitcroft, Councillor Richard Wilson and Councillor David O'Mahony. All those against? That's Councillor Cliff Betton, Councillor Victoria Wheeler and Councillor Valerie White. And any abstentions? That's no abstentions. That vote is carried.
And informative. Now on to item number 5, Hyams Park, Chertsey Road, Windlesham.
Thank you, Chair. The application is being reported to committee because it's a major development over 1,000 metres squared in floor space. Planning permission is sought for the erection of building 1 associated with the redevelopment of Hyams Park for the Gordon Murray Automotive Company with associated parking, landscape and ancillary storage. The building would be used for the office functions for the company. This slide just shows the application site. It's located west of Hyams Lane. The site has already been redeveloped under the full permission granted under the reference 20747. The application is similar to the reserved matters for application for landscaping layout and appearance that was previously approved by the Planning Committee under reference 230005. That application went to Planning Committee on the 20th of April 2023. The application site is bounded to the south by the M3 motorway. To the north is the sort of molecular building which is to be retained. The west of the site is woodlands and fields, and to the east of the site is Four Oaks Nursery. The site is located within the green belt. Whilst full permission under the hybrid approval has been implemented, the outline parts have lapsed due to reserved matters not being submitted in time. This application therefore seeks planning permission for Building 1, which is just there, for the office facilities that was previously approved under the reserved matters. This slide is looking at the application site and parking looking west. The east elevation. Sorry, I've just lost my place. Just bear with me.
Would you carry on or start again?
Just looking, I think. Oh, this is the right. So this is the right slide. So this slide shows the application site with parking to the west. This shows the existing location of Building 2 and the internal access road and layout. Yeah, that's the side elevation of Building 2. And this is the emergency access, which will be closed once the development is complete. This shows the existing site and the location of Building 2, which has been erected, and the existing internal access road. The proposed site plan showing the parking to the southwest of the southeast of the site. There'll be a total of 166 car parking spaces. A new access to the north of the existing access would also be provided. As I've said, this access would remain to the south as an emergency access, but it would not be used and would generally be shut. Surrey County Highways does not object to the parking provision of the new access, and this application, compared to the lapsed reserved matters, has also admitted a couple of ancillary buildings to the southeast of the proposed building. So just to run through the elevations of the building, these are the east and west elevations, elevations of north and south, and then the elevations of the ancillary storage building that's also proposed. The proposal would be an appropriate development within the Greenbelt. However, the proposed very special circumstances that were previously considered would remain. The proposal would result in a reduced amount of built form compared to the reserved matters application that was previously approved. As I've said, all the very special circumstances of the approval of the original permission still stand. The design, siting and landscaping are considered acceptable. The proposal would not harm the amenity of neighbouring residential occupiers, nor would it harm the safe and efficient operation of the public highway. It would be acceptable in terms of flood risk. The biodiversity net gain and all other matters have been adequately dealt with or secured by condition. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and referral to the Secretary of State. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Members, do you have any questions to ask of the officers? Councillor Wheeler.
Can we confirm that the beautiful oak in the picture isn't going to need to go in order to get this building built?
Sorry, which oak do you refer to?
It's in our papers. Hang on. They're saying it's staying, are they? Okay.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I believe yeah, go back. Yeah. I believe those lines of oaks there would be retained as part of the development. I think that's where Building 3 is going to be placed, and that's the next item on the agenda.
I'll hold on to that one then. Spoiler alert.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you. Just wondering if the officers could clarify to me why it's going to the Secretary of State. I think I missed that somewhere.
The application is a departure from the development plan because it's not an allocated site and it's development within the Greenbelt, which is a major development. So part of the process for any major development which is within the Greenbelt and not an allocated site within the local plan, it would be considered a departure. And part of that process is that we refer those applications to the Secretary of State should they wish to call that in and make a decision themselves.
Because this application deemed to be materially different to the previous one. Okay, thank you. I have another separate point, if that's possible. So, in a surprising turn of events, we're back on highways. I couldn't, whilst I understand a bit about the emergency exit and there's going to be the new entry and exit, what I wasn't clear about from the documentation was when that new entrance would be opened. Previously, you had a development site, then you had an operational site, and now what we're planning to have here is potentially two separate decisions, I accept, but potentially two construction sites and an operational site, all going through one entrance and exit, which is the emergency one. And additionally to that, as I think locals will appreciate, the carnage that is pick up and drop off time around Valley End and the disorganised parking arrangements that exist mean that there would be super duperly loads of traffic directly adjacent to vulnerable individuals. So I just wondering if the officers could clarify whether there is currently any plans to open up the new entrance first as part of this development, or it is something that we could suggest in order to mitigate the development, should we agree to it, on the surrounding area.
I would imagine that there's nothing within the conditions that requires a particular phasing of the development itself. It would be something that we probably need to speak to with the applicant. However, it could be something that, as part of the construction transport management plan, speaking with highways, we could possibly, and also the applicant themselves, sort of ask for that to be done. But as I say, there's nothing within the suggested conditions to do it in a particular order.
Thank you. So that was my understanding from having read it, but I would appreciate, and I don't know whether other members would like to clarify, if we were able to suggest that, because I think both for the people on the site and off the site, it's going to help mitigate the various risks associated with this potential development.
I think similar to the previous application, we can put an informative on relating to the construction transport management plan and making that clear.
Members, do you have any other questions? The author's recommendation is to grant, subject conditions, referral to the Secretary of State as a departure from the development plan and the informative we just noticed. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Got that?
Councillor MacDonald as proposer. Councillor MacDonald as proposer.
Sean MacDonald's a proposer.
And
Okay. You'd like to do that?
So we'll be voting on the officer's recommendation to grant the application. Please could all members who wish to vote for the application please raise their hands clearly. That is unanimous.
Application has been granted, subject to conditions. Now on to item 6, Irons Park, Chertsey Road, Wardenshire. Ian, if you'd like to present.
Thank you, Chair. This application has been referred to Planning Committee because it's a major development of over 1,000 metres squared. The planning permission is sought for the erection of Building 3 associated with the redevelopment of Hyman's Park for the Gordon Murray Automotive Company with associated parking and landscaping. The building would be used for the painting of the finished motor vehicles. So again, just the application site, as previously, it's located west of Hyams Lane. The M3 motorway to the south, the molecular building which is to be retained, and west is Woodlands, and to the east is Four Oaks Nursery. The site is located within the Greenbelt. Whilst the full permission under the hybrid approval has been implemented, the outline parts have lapsed due to the reserve matters not being submitted in time. This application therefore seeks the erection of Building 3 for a paint shop. Unlike Building 1, the reserve matters for this particular application had not been submitted. So just to run through some photos, looking west along the current internal access road and looking at the south of Building 2. This is looking south of Building 2 and as you can see the oaks have been retained around the car parking. This is where the building's proposed to be located. They're currently temporary spray booths because the factory is now actually operational. These booths are subject to a separate planning application for their temporary siting. But obviously, once Building 3 is being started, these will be removed. And then just this site, internal access road looking east. This is the existing site plan. Sorry. And this is a proposed site plan to show the siting of the proposed building and car parking to the south, with additional car parking as well to the east there. Just the proposed elevations of the buildings. So these are the west and east elevations. These are the north and south elevations of the building. The scale and the massing of the building is in line with the parameters agreed at the outline and hybrid permission stage, and the design is considered acceptable. So the application is an inappropriate development within the green belt, but the very special circumstances considered under the previous approval remain applicable, are considered to outweigh the harm to the green belt. Design and siting and landscaping is considered to be acceptable. The proposal would not harm the amenity of neighbouring residential occupiers, nor would there be any harm to the safe, efficient operation of the public highway, and would be acceptable in flood risk terms. The biodiversity net gain exempt due to the site already being developed and has been adequately, and all other matters have been adequately dealt with and secured by condition. As such, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and referral to the Secretary of State. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Members, do you have any questions of the officers or of Ian? Councillor Garrett?
Just picking up on your point about the temporary spray booths, did you say they will be removed when work starts, or will they be removed after work is finished?
I believe that the application is at the moment with the council. I believe that they will be removed because I think this is where the building is going to be sited itself. But I would need to double check the application that's in at the moment.
Members. Councillor MacDonald?
If I could just ask my comments previously to be cut and pasted across to this item as well. Thank you.
You're asking for the same informative to be added? Yeah, we can do that. If there are no further questions, the officer's recommendation is to grant, subject to conditions, referral to the Secretary of State as departure from the development plan and the addition of the informative. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Garrett.
Choose.
Councillor Ying-Tong-Perrott.
So this will be the vote on the officer's recommendation to grant the application. Please could all members who wish to vote for the recommendation to raise their hands clearly. That is unanimous.
The application is granted, subject to the conditions and legal agreement. Next up is item 7, 101 Guildford Road, Lightwater. Melissa Turney presents.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. So the application was previously considered by members in September 2024 and granted permission subject to conditions and legal agreement. This application seeks to alter the housing tenure mix to 100% affordable housing and removal of condition 22, which relates to building control matters. The application has been reported back to committee as it's a major. There are a few updates to take note of these as we go through. So the application relates to a residential redevelopment of a commercial site within the settlement area of Lightwater. The site has planning permission for the demolishment of all existing buildings and the construction of 21 dwellings with a new access onto Guildford Road and associated parking and landscaping. The site is located on the screen there, and to the northwest is the St Anne's House and the Crossley Club. Beyond that, in commercial use, the surrounding boundaries are mainly residential. On the opposite side of the road is the post office. So here's just the views from the front. So the picture on the left is from April 2024, and now the picture on the right is from June 2025. That you can see the site is now being hoarded, ready for development, and they are currently in the process of submitting all the pre-commencement conditions subject to the previous application. So as part of this submission, the proposal doesn't alter the number of units, size, scale, form or access arrangements and would remain as the approved application. This application, the previous application was policy compliant in terms of the affordable housing. The site has been acquired by a housing association and they wish to deliver the site as 100% affordable. They also seek to remove condition 22, which references building control legislation. The proposal seeks 10 shared ownership units, which are shown in purple, and the 11 affordable rented units, which are shown in red. Overall, as mentioned, the proposal would not alter the number of units on the site. Wouldn't alter the number of units on the site in terms of size, scale, form and access arrangements, and will be the same as the approved. The proposed is for 100% affordable housing and is a betterment and would make a valuable contribution to the council's unmet need. No objection is raised to the removal of condition 22. Overall, the application is recommended for condition subject to conditions and a section 106 agreement to secure the affordable housing and the SANG and SAM contributions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Melissa. Members, do we have some questions? Councillor Garrett.
Just a comment, it's a shame the previous applicants that were here for the first item aren't here now, because we've now moved from to an all affordable housing from something that obviously they weren't able to do. I'm not going to say anything against this because I've always said in this chamber we need affordable housing, so I think it's a brilliant idea. It's unfortunate that other developers don't see that they can go down this route.
Councillor MacDonald.
I agree with Councillor Garrett, and I hate to correct the officers, but in fact all those buildings are flat now. I went past the site this morning. I assume that's compliant with all the relevant provisions.
Thank you very much, Councillor MacDonald, for advising the officers of that. Members, do we have any other questions? Okay, if we don't, the officer's recommendation is to grant subject to conditions and a variation to the legal agreement. Proposer and seconder needed, please. Proposer, Councillor Garrett. Seconder, Councillor Betton.
So we'll now go to the vote on the officer's recommendation to grant the application. Would all members who wish to vote for the application please raise their hand clearly? That is unanimous.
The application has been granted, subject to conditions. On to the final application of tonight. Land East St Margaret's, Woodlands Lane, Windlesham. Ian, are you presenting?
Thank you, Chair. This application has previously been to the Planning Committee where it was resolved to grant planning permission. During the securing of the legal agreement, the applicant's biodiversity net gain site, they couldn't actually finalise an agreement with the landowner. So this application has been reported back to Planning Committee because it's a major, but also just to agree with the new biodiversity net gain site that the applicant has secured. The application itself seeks planning permission for the erection of 20 dwellings with the access from Woodlands Lane. It was 100% affordable with shared ownership. As I said, the committee on the 19th of September 2024 resolved to grant the planning application. The applicant has now secured a site north of Valley End Road. It's a private site, but it would be the site to which they would provide the off-site biodiversity net gain. It's sort of located just south of the M3 motorway. As stated previously in the report, this is in excess of the 100. It's not mandatory biodiversity net gain because of the time when the application was submitted, but it is in excess of the 10% required by the current legislation. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval with the same conditions as previously agreed, but instead using this particular site as a biodiversity net gain site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Wheeler.
So this site is quite some distance from the development site, which is disappointing. The other question that I have is that this site is subject to a planning application for 4 dwellings. I think it's 4, might be slightly more. And I just wondered what that impact is likely to have on the deliverability of this site. So if, just for reference, it is planning... Oh, where do I find it? Let me go back, sorry. It's planning application number 250032. which is for 4 dwellings, including garages, carports and landscaping. It may be that it's another part of this site and isn't actually within it, but have we actually seen a legal agreement between the applicant and the owner of this site assuring, because it feels to me as though we've already had one application that said it was somewhere and they've changed their minds. There is an application for Westways Farm for 4 houses, and have we actually got absolute assurance that this isn't another one that's just going to fall by the wayside?
So in terms of the planning application, I believe that's possibly on another site. However, this particular application would be subject to the applicant's, well, the biodiversity net gain would be secured through a legal agreement, and the applicant would have to submit a biodiversity net gain plan to show us how they're going to achieve that 20%. So obviously, if they can't achieve the 20% on this site, we wouldn't, as it were, discharge that obligation under the legal agreement. They wouldn't be able to proceed with the development, essentially. So it acts almost like a pre-commencement condition, but because this site's outside of the application site, it's secured through the legal agreement. But as I said, I believe the application that you refer to is possibly on a neighbouring site, but I'd have to come back and
They're just both
double-check
referred to
that
as
for you.
Westley Green Farm, so it's difficult to know that. So both the planning application is for Westley Green Farm, and obviously this is Westley Green Farm. So it's certainly part of the same site, if not exactly the same point. And is there any requirement? I'm assuming it's within a given area, a given distance, because this is a distance from the site. The advantage of the other site that it would have been almost adjacent for people to use it. And here you can't get there because there's no safe walking.
Yes, so that's correct. There's no requirement for them to provide it open to the public, but I do believe there are a couple of public footpaths that run up the side, but obviously no public access would be provided there, no.
We've got Valley End School that abuts Westley Green Farm, so we've got problems with access. We've got no formal pavements between these two sites to get you from one to the other, not safely.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just to clarify, I've asked the officers about this previously. This site is not accessible to the public. It's not meant to be. It's for biodiversity. It's just new habitat for wildlife. So it really shouldn't be accessible to the public.
Members, any other questions? Okay, the officer's recommendation is a grant, subject to conditions and a legal agreement. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Councillor. The officer's recommendation is a grant, subject to conditions and legal agreement. Let's put the vote.
So would all those who wish to vote for the officer recommendation to grant the application please raise their hands clearly? So that is Councillor Sean Garrett, Councillor Cliff Betton, Councillor Ying Tong Perrott, Councillor David O'Mahony, Councillor Murray Rowlands, Councillor Sean MacDonald, Councillor David Whitcroft, Councillor Richard Wilson. All those against? Councillor Victoria Wheeler and Councillor Valerie White.
No abstentions.
No abstentions. The vote is carried.
The application is granted, subject to conditions. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Hope you have a lovely week, what's left of it.